Hey there, welcome back. It's still Fruitful, and we're still in the series called The Roots of the Fruitful. My name is Jerry Halm. Thank you for staying with us. So we've done a number of lessons. We've done 3 already. Drop roots first, drop roots deep, drop more roots. What are we talking about today? Today we're talking about drop roots regardless. Drop roots regardless. Have you realized that to survive, plants have to grow and extend their roots into dirt? And that is what exactly they do. Put a plant in the on a dunghill, it will drop roots. They don't discriminate. Why? Because the tree knows that the roots need to be dropped down, deep down, so that it draws nutrients from layers and layers of decomposed matter, transforming what might seem like decay into living energy. So a tree will drop roots. The rot of an animal manure, the stench of chemical fertilizers do not prevent the roots from sucking the nutrients that it needs. Tiny roots will take up water and nutrients from the rot and mud and leave behind unwanted large particles. And this explains why plants grow in the mud, but the mud does not get into its roots, right? It has a system where it will take out what it needs and leave out what it doesn't need. That is a beautiful lesson, if you ask me. That is a beautiful lesson. I'm so excited about that, right? That trees can draw sustenance from seemingly barren ground and seemingly rotting ground. They will drop roots deep, work harder when they have very little to do. Plant a tree in the desert, it will still send roots to go look for water, right? So trees operate in this way. Regardless of where I find myself, I'm going to tap into an experience and use it to grow. Oh, isn't that a beautiful lesson? If we would, right, take a lesson from that. For the fruitful in this life, this lesson is simple. Don't allow unpleasant things in the past to pass without sucking out the right lessons from them. And when you suck out the right lessons, leave it. Don't carry the unwanted particles along. Leave it. Learn from it and move on. Oh, but there are people who are still stuck to 10 years ago. And they are playing it's become like a broken tape, the broken record. It keeps repeating itself. Why? They've not left the lesson. They've not picked the lesson and left the rot. The tree picks the nutrients and leaves the rest behind. Right? The fruitful give different meaning to their experiences in life. Somebody cheated you. Okay, we learn from it. We move on so that next time we are more careful. Nobody comes to cheat on us. But we won't live in that past and say, no, I'm not doing business with anybody again because one time somebody cheated me. No, you learn the lesson, you leave the rest, and then you move on in life. That is what the tree does, right? Trauma is not something to be discarded, but understood, right? Failures are not dead ends, but they are rich lessons for future test. So each challenge contains within it nuggets of wisdom. Learn what you to learn and leave the rest. I've seen too many people not go anywhere in life after years because they are still stuck in the past. The tree doesn't allow that to happen. It drops roots regardless, picks the lessons that must be picked, and leaves the rest behind. And then it keeps growing. It keeps growing. The fruitful are like that. So to be fruitful, you need to know this. You're willing to look deeply for lessons that life throws your way. I've seen people who have had one experience and vowed based on that experience that they will never, ever, ever, ever. Okay? I'm saying learn from the experience. So let me give you a number of these examples so that it makes sense to you. I'm having a conversation with a lady and I mentioned someone's name. And the person's eyes lit up. And that person's experience, or the person I was talking about, wasn't too good an example. I was using a person as a negative example of what not to do. And then this person I'm advising goes like, people with that name, eh? Oh, wow. You don't even, and I'm like, just the name? Is there people with that name? They are like that. They're very troublesome. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh wow, tell me about it. Then she tells me about the someone in their life who has the same name, and the person that has disappointed her, and the person didn't treat her well, so she has vowed that people with that name. Seriously. So what if you meet someone who gives you his middle name, and then you become very close to the person to the point of getting into a relationship, and then you realize that the person's first name is the name you don't like? What happens to you? You're going to leave the relationship because he has a name that you don't like? But that is exactly what I'm saying. Don't carry the negatives along with you. Don't carry the negatives along with you. Learn the lessons and leave the negatives behind. That is what a fruit tree does. Plant it in mud and in trash. It will not allow it to be affected. It will draw whatever it needs to draw and leave the rest behind. And then it keeps growing. It keeps growing. Draw whatever it needs to draw, leave the rest behind. Then it keeps growing. Don't be like that. There are people who won't marry into certain tribes, no matter what. Why? Because someone, in fact, their case is even worse. They didn't have the negative experience. Somebody did, and the person told them, and based on that, they also then became they became disciples of the first person's experience. And because of that, no, you don't do that. You don't do that. Always be careful. Be very, very, very careful about painting people based on an experience. I'm saying trees are planted in death, but they don't allow the debts to get to them. They pick the vital lessons and then they move on in life. Each challenge comes their way. They know within the challenge is a nugget of wisdom, and they store it away for future use. And they are willing to look deeply into their experiences. And then also, sometimes they go into the experience and realize that maybe I was at fault. They pick a lesson from that and then they run. So don't just be too concerned about what the past did to you without first learning the lessons. They say that if you don't learn from history, you keep repeating it. You keep repeating your mistakes. If you don't learn from past mistakes, you keep repeating them. People have had the same thing. Somebody comes and says, how come I always attract very toxic guys, or I'm always in toxic relationships? Probably the first toxic that happened, you didn't really learn a lesson from it. And life is a very good school teacher. Will keep giving you the lesson. If you don't pass, you repeat the class. It gives you the lesson. Until you pass, you're not promoted. You keep staying in the same class. Regardless, trees drop roots. And how do they do that? They don't look at the surroundings. They pick the lessons that must be learned, and then they move on from there. They do, and also remember that when the experience happens, the worst thing you want to do is also to shut it down and behave as if it never happened. No, it happened. You lost a loved one, it happened. Face it, learn from it, and move on. You lost a relationship, face it. Don't behave as if it didn't happen. Oh, it didn't happen. No, it happened. Face it, and it is only then that you'll be able to move on. If you hold on to the past, you are in big trouble. And if you discard the past and behave as if it didn't happen, you are in bigger trouble. One day it will pop up from somewhere. The body might have behaved as if it's forgotten, but it's truly not forgotten. It's hidden somewhere, waiting to pop its head up. So be like a fruit tree. The fruit tree will drop roots regardless. Plant it in water, dirty water. It will still drop roots because he knows that its survival is dependent on it getting the right nutrients from wherever the surroundings it finds itself. And then from there, it picks itself up and moves on and on and on and on. Let that be your lesson in this life. Don't allow the negatives to stop you from dropping roots. Drop the roots, pick the lessons from the experiences, and then use those lessons to become a better person. Then and only then would you be fruitful. So that is another lesson for today on the roots of the fruitful, as part of the series on the roots of the fruitful. Yes, that's the series itself, right here on Fruitful with Jerry Halm. We hope you've learned from it, and we hope we've given you a lesson that you carry along with you. Don't forget, this is a series. Someone would be able to learn from someone, and then also pick lessons that are very important to you. So we're still on the roots of the fruitful. Hope you've enjoyed this very video. Don't forget, there's been 3 more, and so this is the 4th one. Try and get all of them on this very channel. Drop roots first, drop roots deep, drop more roots, and drop roots regardless. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.